lobby. I'm not gonna lie. If you told me that these were the top 8 players, it's like, yeah, maybe there's 1 or 2 players you wouldn't really expect. That's kind of how top 8s work, though. If you're Dissoap and you need strong placements to get out of the bottom 8 standings, this is not the lobby you want to be playing in.
No.
Very, very difficult one, right? There's so much power, but that's kind of what happens when you get to the global stage, right? You look at a lot of lobbies, and I think you kind of be like, okay, yeah, all these are very, very strong players, of course, right? But with Milk, you know, Dissoap, 60-second, Og, these are players who have all the stats to back it up. Title as well, right? I can't forget Title.
And for someone as confident as Dissoap, I think this game is not only about playing first or 8 to not get eliminated in day 1, but looking at making top 8 even, having an absolutely miraculous run in day 2. I think he's not just going to settle with making day 2 and then being so far away he can't realistically make that top 8. He needs to go for a first to try and still have and keep that dream alive.
Every point matters.
That's right.
Yep.
Absolutely.
On the flip side, Milk, one of the North American representatives who's sitting at the top half of the standings with a very clear Hunter angle. I mean, you have a potential even Shroud Slam if you really want to. You could greed the components. There's a handful of ways to play it.
With the right augment setup, this could become a shapeshifter high roll game where you have this very early high roll upgrades. You can kind of coast off of that in stage 2 and 3 and save your econ for a big spike.
Especially because we're in loot subscription. So who knows what you're going to actually get on every single stage. You could be getting a lot of gold. You could be getting some big item anvils. So a lot of variants. And a prismatic augment.
Is it time for the
to get-
birthday
Hey,
present?
birthday present.
Oh my god.
Honestly,
When you needed it most, birthday present came back to save you.
He must be thinking about it, right? That must be in the back of his mind somewhere, like, hey, I know I
won
could
this
get a first
way.
place. And it's exactly what he needs right now. But a lot of fantastic options for these prismatics coming out, with especially a lot of players who need to be thinking about, hey, not only their top 32 finished, making the day 2, but then making it that top 8.
Prismatic
Pretty big
ticket for dank
risks.
memes.
Oh,
one.
Dissoap ends up. I was wondering how much he was considering upward mobility. Ends up against it. Instead, is playing Tiniest Titan.
Everyone got a support anvil from their loot subscription, by the way.
Ooh, okay.
Very interesting.
Yeah, a lot of power, right? Sometimes subscription can just not impact the lobby that much. Sometimes it is going to have that wider variance, right? That big, and wow, look at this
Not this
double
time.
Randuins. Wow, that's so much stats and resistances. I don't think I've seen much of double Randuins on anything. What if you go that with, like, you know, 6 Bastion or something? It's just, God, the units will never die.
As a resident Kassadin enjoyer and EMEA caster, my boys are doing so good. They're just finding the best spots to play multi-strikers every game.
Eating well tonight. That's what we are.
Oh, man. Take a
What
look at the
if not?
augment choices that other people made here. I saw Dissoap took Tiniest Titans. Milk actually took Living Forge, as did another player. That's going to be 60-second that took that one. So on top of the support anvil, you're also going to be getting a ton of artifacts. That's really going to up the tempo of the lobby.
Ooh, treasure chest here. Not fantastic, though,
We got
unfortunately.
Lichbane for mages.
Yeah.
Got a handful of different things. I mean, we're seeing Og's board. We called it out before. Great setup for playing things like the multi-strikers. With the Randuin Omen's Augment, it allows you to expand the range of that Randuin's, which is primarily why, all of a sudden, in a comp that you normally need to clump everyone in a circle, you can play this frontline-oriented multi-strikers.
Looking at title already, a very, very strong setup for Ahri if he wants to go for it. Has the Radiant Blue buff already on the Ahri. Has the Chalice as well, which gets that extra buff from Ahri's passive with the Arcana bonus. My only worry is that I believe I saw both Dank Memes and Dissoap relatively open forwarding, holding units that lead into the Ahri Zoe line.
And that's exactly why Title, I think, has leveled up already to 4, right?
Yep.
It has all these one-cost units that generally leans into that Bastion Ahri line, but maybe it's going to play it a bit more tempo
I think it
style.
will be the Ahri Vanguard instead.
Yeah.
We're seeing the hold on the Blitz and the Warwick, identifying I have a very strong spot for Ahri. Despite the strength of this spot, I cannot beat 2 contesters on the same units that I usually play. Instead, I'll find an out with the Vanguards.
Absolutely, and that's not something that we saw in the Americas that much. It was mostly just that Bastion Ahri focus, but other regions playing Ahri around so many other different spots, finding that success. The only concern is, are the Vanguards going to be contested by some other players, right? But looking at this lobby, as of right now, it doesn't seem like that's really going to be the case. Maybe 62nd, but not many other players.
Just up as Moonstone Renewer, I really like this item when it comes down to the Bastion Ahri line. I just think it allows you to have a lot of sustain to make sure that your Ahri can actually get a lot of casts off, but I do think that Dish Soap has the opportunity to maybe flex towards something else. He does have this Jace too, so if he's able to push levels, he could actually just play like Rise Scholar.
There's no world where Dish Soap will triple contest Ahri as a unit specifically with Tidal and with Dank Memes. Dank Memes, I think, also has Chalice, so he is probably committing fully into the one-cost version of Ahri. There will still be problems between Tidal and Dank Memes both hitting their Ahri when they need to as their main carry. But Dish Soap, he's scouting, he's saying, there is no way I'm going down this this rabbit hole. I will, as you mentioned, Necro, try and play for tempo.
Yeah, I'm actually very curious to see what component Dish Soap picks up here. Takes a bow, which does... It makes me wonder for a second, is he actually considering something like Fairy here? The problem I see with Dish Soap's spot is when you play something like Tiniest Titans, it means two things. One, you're generally speaking trying to play around this fast 8, fast 9, and it means two, you need to hit a board that can make up a prismatic augment's worth of combat. Generally, we see that in the form of Callista or maybe something like the Shapeshifters on level 9. I'm not exactly sure if he has like a clear path to either one, though.
It's not really a clear path, but Dish Soap, just in general, the line is very comfortable for him to be a kind of either open fort or lost streak into that fairy line.
But we have seen him before take a mage spot and actually transition it to something like the Callista Fairy. So he's not necessarily somebody that is a stranger to maybe doing something for tempo and then transitioning into something that he thinks is going to be the strongest board to cap out in the late game.
Ahri 2 already for title with that Radiant Blue buff, right? That's a huge hit to get out of the Prismatic Pandoras there. It's really, really big. Going to be one of the reasons why title is going to be in huge contention to full 5 streak here, right? Warmog's in the front line, Lilia, title just in a fantastic spot. If it wasn't already doing well, this is shaping up for at least a top 4, if not more.
Milk is also going to be on a 4-win streak right now. He's going to be playing the Wukong Jinx. We saw him get a chance to get those hunters early.
And Milk we're seeing pretty committed already in terms of the QSS being slammed, an item that is very specific in the meta, does fit well into Jinx. The learnings now that we're at the end of the set where Jinx really needs to have that window of time when she gets a takedown to get full effect from it. If she gets stunned, she loses a lot of her power, and QSS comes in as that safety net for Jinx to operate as a unit. Yeah, and the Innovating Locket on the Wukong as well, right? Gives it a lot of staying power in the front line. This is a line that's not really contested. Milk, obviously a huge expert in reroll lines. That's where he's found a lot of success historically. Has done so at the American Golden Spatula, and even to start the day off here. And the chance for Olaf to be the sponge that soaks up the extra resources in the late game when you have Loot Subscription and Living Forge. Yeah.
Kassadin 2 with all the resistances and bonuses from the double Randuin. Actually looks very scary for a board that is level 5 up against level 4. If that Wukong fell, could have been a very different fight. But Milk able to secure the streak. So does Tidal on the top side. On the bottom side, though, looks like Dank Memes and Hung Hung both get the 5-loss streak.
Yeah, look at the economy there, though. Hung Hung 5 streak isn't even the lowest, though. Dank Memes actually won the round and is still lower. That's, a little bit of an econ difference there, which can make a big difference. I do want to take a peek at Ning Li's setup. He has a Syndra already with 2 items, a Rageblade and a Shojin. Has a great augment for the Shapeshifters as well. This is someone who we've seen, I think, really pick up on his meta read coming into the later parts of the set. Domestically did not have the best set stat-wise. You would think, I'm surprised he even made it this far. He made it to the global stage, but as he did last set, finished 3rd place, I think this is a player that scales into the late game in terms of the bigger picture of the set itself.
Rises to the occasion.
Exactly so. Like Syndra does as well, so maybe thematically playing the right comp here.
Got the mana item. Very good. Let's take a look at the second loot.
Some gold.
Some gold. That's a decent amount of gold as well, though.
That's a lot of gold.
So especially these players who are rolling very early. They're going to have a lot more resources to do so. But we've got to keep in mind, right, the players who are angling to contest each other with that Ahri line in the early game. What are they going to do with all this gold here?
Hung Hung is going to try to, I think, flip the script a little bit. We did see him go for the full loss streak in that second stage, and now with the pumping up, is going to start rolling down.
And we're seeing the problem here for Tidal because the one-cost version rolls earlier, and because there's a prismatic ticket on the side of Dank Memes, this game makes the game much more difficult for Tidal. It'll be much harder because he's rolling for the Vanguard line, which rolls on level 6 and rolls later in stage 3, or slow rolls above 50, really. There might be just too many Ahris out of the pool to consistently hit the 3-star.
it actually makes me feel like someone like Dishsoap is in a beneficial spot with all that gold coming in. So think of it this way. Dishsoap has already committed to essentially losing for most of the mid game. Everybody rolling, it doesn't change anything in Dishsoap's mind. He gets that goal to actually spike a little bit earlier, and everybody else has to roll even more to contest each other on win streak.
Silver Augment up next.
Tiny Titans for Dishsoap?
The tiniest tiny Titan.
That's right. Not this time.
No, unfortunately not.
Tidal could pick it though if he wants to.
There's an option for
And he
flying your
does.
center for Milk, which for me is always funny with Wukong being, of course, a very central part of that board.
True.
Will be Silver taking the end instead, it looks like.
Makes sense. Going to be rolling a lot on 7, obviously. Getting a little bit of econ always helps. Dank Memes is the prismatic ticket players three-way contesting, depending on how far Tidal wants to dig into the line, and is definitely going to be favored in this roll down against the other players contesting him.
Yeah, still just on an RE1 though is really, really unfortunate. Still a little bit behind, has 8 Zoes but only 6 Poppies, and not ideal items either. I think Giant Slayer, decent. Jewel Gauntlet, of course, good, but not being able to finish a mod item at this point in the game. Dank Memes is going to suffer in stage 3 here. It's going to be very hard to find a win with just an RE1.
Especially because that Lilia also doesn't have a lot of items either. Like the Gargoyles
Yeah.
is super nice, but I think still what you're looking at the RE Bastions, the strength comes in from having the Bastions. So
Yeah.
just wanting to make sure you have that strong front line with items as well.
Speaking of strong front line, 62nd on their side there that just took out Dank Memes was playing Hui and looked like maybe Hui Vanguard, so Vanguards might not be as free as we had thought.
You see some key upgrades here on the Zoe. Now
Big.
2 3-stars, obviously scaling with the Arcana that's already enabled on this board with the Ari. I think the itemization, once the blue buff is found, is pretty ideal with the damage amp coming in onto the extra AP from the Chalice as well. But all in all, if he was completely uncontested, great. But because Tidal's going to hold some Aries and you're only sitting on 3 Aries after rolling a lot of your gold and the extra gold as well from loot subscription, it's looking hard to stabilize and really find your spike.
We can see on the left-hand side, Dishsoap taking Pandora's items. To me, at this point, it kind of screams everything we've seen up to this point in time. Callista certainly a line that benefits from having something like, especially silver Pandora's items, where you're not losing significant combat power compared to the field. He had things like the sword, like the cloak, or like the belt as well, that he may not have an immediate use for. All of a sudden, he can take anything he wants off the carousel, potentially this Callista,
Wow.
for instance.
No way.
Yeah,
And
first
this-
pick, he's right in front of
You
it.
could
He
see.
already has 2 Rage Blades as well, so the setup is here. It's a fairy
I
line.
will say, if he wasn't right in front of it with Tiniest Titans, I might be a little bit worried. There's a slim chance, but if I was the one piloting, the chance is a lot bigger. That you misclick, you run into the wrong unit. More talk making sure that it's an
Yeah.
easy path to victory there,
Hey,
right? to
Tiniest
Callista.
Titan. We can see the micro difference of players
That's
in
right.
TFT sometimes here. Your mechanics do matter in TFT.
Only time I'm ever able to weave is accidentally when I have Tiniest Titan.
Yeah.
While forgetting the carousel loaded up and you're just clicking by accident.
That's right.
Or you have lag and then you hit the wrong thing anyway.
There you go. Milk. Okay, this is an interesting spot. Okay, many players, there's an argument, usually when you're playing 3 costs, you don't want to go for the level 7. If you're playing from ahead, many players in this spot would actually level to 7 and then begin to try and stabilize their board. But Milk, okay, he actually does go for it. I was going to say he decided in this moment to actually try and greed. I think what he's trying to do in this moment is make sure he doesn't lose too much tempo, right? People are starting to ramp up. He wants to be able to kill as many units as possible, but I don't think he's leveling here to try and sneak a fight win.
Hey, that Olaf positioning looked a little bit familiar there, King. We talked
Right.
about that just a little bit earlier. Exactly, was on the Lilia. Nunu walked up, jumped to it.
And we saw the optimization there from Milk, playing a reroll, holding a lot of units from opposing rerolls. The Syndras were being hovered, one in the shop, one on the bench. In the end, because of level up, you have to sell and give up on that optimization. But showing that Milk, when he's trying his hardest, he's doing every little thing he can to give him the biggest edge in terms of his placements.
Looking
Now
forward
they're
to him.
Living Forge.
Yeah, what's it going to be?
I feel like ideally you're looking for something now to fill out like the Jinx or the Olaf.
Yeah, Olaf definitely going to make a lot of good use out of some of these items.
Death's Defiance is one that comes to mind. There's
Yeah. I
love
plenty of
that
different
item.
options. You know, Gold Collector
Whoa.
on Jinx.
Silvermere Dawn.
There's a lot of great options. I'm actually curious as to
Suspicious.
why he's not popping this.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's just trying to make sure his positioning is
I think maybe
correct
keep loose
first.
streaking.
Maybe.
Yeah, just that little bit of extra gold.
Like he has a 1-star Jinx right now. His board to me isn't necessarily that strong. And so I think if you are to give like a big artifact over, maybe you are going to push the pendulum a little bit too much in the winning direction.
Yeah, I think Milk's going to see what he gets on Wolves first,
That's
see
true,
where
too.
he can itemize all these units.
There is actually, I think, one point to make here is the fact that if you wait until stage 4, you don't get gold generation anymore. There's a min-max you can do. So because he's loose streaking anyway, you take some artifacts out of the pool.
Cool. That's great tech.
To know.
There's the thumbs up.
They're so
Yeah.
on
Oh!
this Callista
Finds
spot.
Final. Big hit there. Frontline.
Doesn't have Rakan yet, though.
Yeah, looking a little sus right now. Even just Lilia one, right? Hecarim is a good upgrade. Not quite there. So I'm a little bit concerned. Is only on one Callista, 0 Rakans. Depending on what Loop Subscription does give in the next round, could have a massive impact on Dish Soap's game.
Or just hit.
Needs to be able to save his items here, find out what he's valuing, what he's saving. He's
No
rerolling
chain.
a
Oh,
lot
does
of
find
that.
the chain off of the Pandoras. Now can slam into that Gargoyles.
Big.
Doesn't.
Find it.
Didn't make Tom Kench too.
Nope, instead finds the Rakan 1, wants to play that instead. And at this point, look at that. Callista 2, Rakan 1. That, honestly, it looks like a pretty stable board to me. The Hecarim 2 does fill out this front line quite well. And the fact that you also have the
Perfect
dummies
items.
for this round as well. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a pretty reasonable roll down for Dish Soap.
Yeah,
Got
could
the
even
Last
Thieves'
Whisper.
Gloves. Yeah, or Last Whisper, of course.
Or greed.
I mean, he has Pandora's. He can green to literally best in slot. Just
Yep.
depends on how much HP that he wants to.
And we're seeing now the direct matchup between the RE players. In this case,
Oh,
one
boy.
off for Dank Meme, so has made up a lot of ground considering how far off he was early in stage 3. For title, still very much far away. It looks like pushing levels instead, level
Yes.
7, 50 gold to work with. Understanding, hey, I'm contested, my contester has prismatic tickets. And still,
His mind is blown. I think he's saying, what business do you have playing the same line as me when I have prismatic ticket?
I mean, it's not quite the same line, right? He's pushing levels, not quite re-rolling, but is holding an extra Ari in the bench, so it's like, hey,
Yeah.
man, sell
I
that
would
one,
be
sell
thankful
that.
he's not actually contesting on the reroll Ari
Yeah, you'd be
instead,
thanking
but
him in your cam.
I'm a more humble player, it feels like.
I think it could just be some frustration of not hitting the RE2. We did see Dank Memes
Yeah.
at 0 gold.
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
the fact that he won that round and was able to maintain his 4-win streak is a huge moment for Dank Memes. He really does need to find it right now, though.
Oh,
He does.
does.
And he needs the points as well. I mean, Dank Memes was sitting a little bit lower on in terms of the start of the day. He's really been able to claw his way back in, but it is nowhere near safe yet.
Seeing the Blossoming Lotus for Ning Li, who still has not found his upgrades, does find the Cassiopeia 3, does swap off the Rage Blade at the very least onto his upgraded unit already, and leaves, I imagine, only a singular Shojin onto the Syndra for now.
I would have rolled one more time. Because you're one Syndra away. One more
Yeah.
time.
I think, though, Ningli really needs to think about frontline, right? If you hit the Syndra 3, hit the Cassiopeia 3, that's great. But what reaches this composition to get into that top 4, to get the heights, is going to be things like Nico 3, Shyvana 3, Swain 3 as well when you're going for the Shapeshifter variant.
I actually don't know if I agree with Nico 3. I actually think in this case, I would try to push levels after you hit and tech in as many shapeshifters as possible. To me, she feels so underwhelming. When you actually hit the Nico 3, she doesn't actually do as much as I always think she will.
Yeah, I think it oftentimes comes down to how early you're able to hit it, right? If you have to send every single turn on level 6 in order to hit Nico 3, by that time that you hit, everyone else is hitting a power spike that Nico 3 sometimes isn't enough. To me, I think it all comes down to what is the cheapest way to get a front line strong enough that the double Rage Blade and the Shojin on the Syndra make sense.
I love the setup here from 60second. It's a known CN tech. It's called the Lone Wolf.
That's it.
There is a lone wolf in the front line.
About, maybe this is what Clement was talking about, though. He said there was a Warwick.
Yeah.
He specifically made the little claws as he said Warwick.
Yeah, maybe that's probably it. Thank you, David and
That was
Nick,
a
for the
3-second pause where I was worried about.
fantastic breakdown from our two analysts.
That is your tactical breakdown presented by HyperX.
All right, next, breakdown Prowler's Ezreal here.
Oh man, I didn't even see it.
Yeah, that's Shojin Prowler's Ezreal went away from a 3-star.
Guys, I'm not going to lie. I think that Ezreal 3 is so fake. We haven't seen Ezreal 3, this like turbo Ezreal, fail miserably in the last couple of games.
Yeah, we saw some of it come out of the China region as well with that solo frontline Ezreal, right? Takes a lot of damage, does
mage.
shift into the back line, and, do a lot of damage for sure.
Unless you don't.
Unless you don't, unless you shoot to the wrong side.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variance with an Ezreal unit that sometimes is a little frustrating, for sure.
I think it's a good time to take stock of the lobby dynamic right now. We do see Dishsoap was able to maintain the 3-win streak, which we said, that's the shape of his comp. You lose until you win, and then you win as long as you possibly can. He does have the potential for the win out. Oftentimes, though, comes off the back of being able to actually reach level 9. And we saw Milk. We saw him playing relatively slow, right? He went for the level 7, but he didn't roll to win combat. Now he's slow rolling over 7. What this says to me is that he also is trying to play for a high cap.
Briar 2 coming through here for a title. Where does that come from? We've seen multiple Briar 2s on level 8 today.
Okay, but this is the second time. Title, don't mess this up. You have done this
right.
before. Don't overfeed your Briar. She is not that hungry. She needs to
She's
go on
so
a diet. Please.
With
Briar
81
is
HP,
so
she's
hungry.
looking extra hungry to me.
There's a lot of
happened,
HP
though.
to feed here.
Right, but he did this last time, remember?
Yeah,
Title got
yeah.
Briar so early. Overfed her, didn't have enough HP because he fed past 17, and then he lost, and he got 4th with a Briar 2.
Briar 2 is still losing in stage 4 here, even with 3 items. This isn't like best in slot or anything, but still rounds that we should be winning. But look at the back line, right? It's Bard 1, it's Karma 1.
And this is the downside to maybe being forced to cook here on the side of Title. Could not play kind of the more autopilot reroll line. Has to find a way out of this game with his huge HP lead. He did a great job in the early game getting to stage 4, to halfway through stage 4 with 80 plus HP, and is now just trying to salvage this game, relying on his creativity as a player.
The Lone Wolf howls again, but this time there's going to be an Ezreal 3 that has been seen in Necra. I know you weren't a big fan of Ezreal 3, but it has an Infinity Edge now.
It
It's gonna do some
does.
damage.
And you are actually, okay, so to give this some credit, there is also only 2 copies of Hwei missing. So if you are
And a
able
duplicator.
Oh,
There
my
you go.
goodness.
So
Ezreal,
one.
get out of there.
Oh, Ezreal, look at him prowler
I
in the
love
back
it.
line. I love this Ezreal unit, actually. I'm a big fan of Prowler's
What are you
Ezreal now.
talking about?
I'm sold. You know, I was-
Dishsoap can't even believe what happened.
To show his stun, I think the mental damage is more important when it comes to playing this Prowler Ezreal.
It's like, what is happening here? I've not seen this dark tech ever. Gang, we're going to get you onto this dark tech now.
Yeah,
no more
yeah, yeah.
Neela. It's
You're
Ezreal
right.
Prowler's
I'm
plot
here.
now.
I'm here for it. Yeah, Prowler
Great.
Tech, I'll be preaching from the
We've hit
rooftop.
the reset button on Gangly.
Yes.
Restart mission.
That's
You're
right.
welcome, chat. I've done it.
All right, so we're actually getting to see Augsboard for the first time in a while really come to fruition. David, you talked about the strength of the multicasters. I feel like
Multi-strikers, hopefully.
Sorry.
I think multi-casters. Let's not speak that word again,
Oh
David.
my god, blast in the past.
You went off
Multi-
Nyla and immediately you reset in the wrong direction.
he reset too far. Change the date.
Rein you back in.
All right, but we saw this with Mald, right? Where Mald wasn't able to play multi-strikers from the 7 multi-striker position. Instead, had to be able to play it from 5, and ultimately was, able to scrape out the top 4 because of the HP. But the HP this game is much closer. Aug doesn't really have as much HP to leverage.
It wasn't the silver augment start where multi-strikers, a 3-item Kassadin just takes over the entire lobby. The prismatic start, the extra resources from loot subscription allows for some crazier combos in the early game where a singular Kassadin cannot really scale up as easily.
Yeah, there were some interesting choices there. There was Banshee's Veil. There already was a Quicksilver there, but we could just remove it and reforge it and essentially have just another full item in that Kassadin. But there was also Living Flame as well, and there was no anti-heal already. Minus
And
that
the
TG roll.
Gem.
Very interesting.
There were a lot of good options.
Yeah.
I want to call out Milk's spot right now is pretty interesting. The fact that he's able to hit Jinx 3 on 62 gold while 57 HP. This feels old school to me. This feels like old Milk. This is very greedy. He's trying to leverage all the resources he's pulled up until this point to try and hit the max cap, which includes, for whatever reason,
Bard
the
3.
second Bard 3 of the day.
It's going to be crazy. Hey, but remember, if you're a newer TFT player, right, HP is a resource, and you got to treat it as such. Exactly what Milk is doing here, saying, I can lose some rounds here, but as long as I'm going to hit everything eventually, it's worth it.
And if you're a newer TFT player, maybe don't play Bard 3. I don't think you need that.
No,
Don't learn that
on
from this
screen
game.
may seem stronger than they appear.
Yeah. Bard 3, here it is.
I think the later roles also comes into fruition because we have someone like 60-second playing into 3 costs as well with the Ezreal and the Hui. Let this player roll first, take all the copies out of the pool, then I have much better odds at hitting my Wukong for better value on all my rolls as well.
Yeah, I see a lot of the item prioritization on this Cassiopeia now, and Syndra just still with that one Shojin. 3 loss streak for Ning Li, though. We thought Ning Li was in a really good spot to make this Shapeshifter and Cantor line work, but and now Poppy in the back line, right? She only has a TG. Can Syndra Cassio take her down? The answer is yes. The carries versus the carries now. It is going to be Ning Li hanging on.
I think this is going to be a very scary board if Ning Li can get the Swain 3. Swain is just such a valuable tank unit. You're 2 copies away, and that's going to give you a ton of power in that front line to really make sure
one more.
that Syndra
One
and
off of each.
Cassiopeia are...
Oh yeah, there's
Tough.
2 Nikos on the board.
Yeah,
One off
so-
of each. Ooh, that's so heartbreaking. Beyond 0 gold, one
That's
off of
tough.
2 different units.
And I think pivoting off of Syndra as the main carry, already you're kind of recalibrating your expectations for the game. It's no longer this chance at a massive high roll with the right conditions for my Syndra to scale into the late game, but instead I'm trying to fight for my current tempo. I'm selling off means to try and find an upgrade.
Yeah.
You're not finding it regardless because you know your matchmaking
6
pool
out
may
of
be too
7.
difficult, and you were forced to roll on 1 life in stage 5, 12 HP. For a player who was dominating up until now, this will possibly be a low score game 5.
Yeah. I didn't even realize he was on 12 HP.
Yeah, Disho was really looking for that top placement coming into this game, was able to get the fairy board online, and right now it looks like he's going to be able to have the damage to break the front line,
I
but
don't
maybe not
know.
the damage to kill the back line. It's a pretty bad loss for Disho, all things considered. You really want to be able to leverage that power as long as possible to potentially get the full upgrade of things like the Morgana 2 as well.
Tank Beams is also going to be on a loss streak right now. He's in danger of getting eliminated this game.
Ning Li can find an Archangels here for the Syndra, help her scale even better, or look at the Shiv instead, something that he desperately needs for both the Syndra and the Cassiopeia.
No remover, though, so it has to go on to the Syndra. We'd like it to be on the Cassiopeia instead, just because she attacks a lot faster, but it's still going to be good, no matter what. Not perfect, though.
Just notice Dishope actually is yet to find Emilio. This is the last piece of the puzzle that he really needs in order to bring that board to its full power on level 9.
Yeah. Another shapeshifter going on the board because Ning Li was playing 6 units last round, even being on level 7, had to sell out of all of those Swains to get the Nico, and it was, just barely enough. This Nico 3, right? It did just enough power.
Tank Beams has a Xerath in just to be able to roll for the Ascendant Charms. He's able to get the Frost Bastion, so that's kind of nice.
Yeah, dying on the field now. We do have 6 Bastion. Ahri, this is where this composition does like to cap out. 2 items on the Ahri. Okay, we get an extra one here because of the augment. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, Arcana units with only 2 items do get a 3rd one once the round does line up. It might not be always the ideal one, but still just 3 items is good.
Honestly, this feels like a bailout spot for Dank Memes.
That's
Ning
give it
Li
a
able to
row
go 8th.
for Ning Li, a player who we mentioned 23 points coming into this game 5. I think the conditions really started turning for the worst start of stage 4. You weren't finding the right spot for that Syndra game instead.
Ooh. All right, get the sugar cash out here for Hong Hong.
Yeah, able to get the gold and the component. Unfortunately, doesn't seem like it's going to be able to make that much of an impact. Gives him an
Giant Slayer Tomcat.
opportunity. Able to roll a little bit more for charm, but it ends up not getting any combat power out of that.
Looking at the standings now, we see Milk and Dish Soap, the 2 highest top 4s in any region this set, showing the consistency when it matters most for Dish Soap. More than consistency, he needs to find that big first place in this game. It's working out for now.
Tank Beams is still at 1 life and is going to have to run into Tidal, somebody that was contesting him early on. And so this is where Tank Beams is going to have to kind of give it to him a little bit if he wants to better his standings at the moment.
Briar's going to fall, but there's no front line left for Dank Memes. He will unfortunately go out with the 7th place finish. Not the finish he wanted. Going to put him relatively close to the bubble, too. So I think Game 6 is going to be really big for Dank Memes.
And a tough matchup as well to lose the title there, the player that made your mid-game a little bit more difficult, using that Ahri as a way to eventually get into this Witchcraft comp, making it that much harder for Dank Memes to hit, and just lost too much HP in that stage 3 especially.
Yeah, if you see Prismatic Ticket with Dank Memes line, you're going to be looking at that. It's like, all right, that's going to be a top 4, right? But the condition of just this game as a whole, you have to look at, and Dank Memes just didn't quite assess it properly. Thought, okay, I can still do this. I can still make this comp work. But yeah, fell in 7th place there.
Hong Hong playing the mage line, I think this is actually a little bit more familiar to what we saw in the Americas, where, you know, it does well in the mid game, but once the power cap starts to be reached by other boards, you just don't have the damage. And at this point, Hong Hong's been free falling for the last couple of rounds, losing those fights. But if you can scrape out one more fight win, find a charm like that that can swing the fight in your favor, then, you know, one fight right now on stage 6 where all of the HP totals, you have 4 players under 20 HP, one fight can swing 4 placements.
Yeah, and look, Hong Hong and 60second, both players who have the Vanguards there contesting each other a little bit, and both of them falling dangerously low. Can Hong Hong hang on in this matchup, though?
We'll be up against title. Radiant blue buff on the Karma. The Briar looking very, very scary with the Radiant BT as well, and the Witchcraft emblem. The Xerath does end up casting in time, but look at the Briar doing so much work, penetrating that back line, and that's going to be the end of the road for Hong Hong, unfortunately.
On the other side, we saw 60second able to take out Milk. And it's something important to note, one of the benefits of playing the blaster line is the access you have to the back line. When hunters want to play this front-to-back sort of composition, 60second said, I can bypass that. I can utilize the Ezreal and the Hui to attack your back line without having to kill the Wukong first.
And Og as well, with a loss there, is now on the chopping block on a singular life now, 11 HP points, 16 points in the standings. Needs to find a relatively good game here to kind of move away from that bubble spot.
Camille, though, so we're going to be able to play 7 multi-striker finally, and that could just be exactly what Og needed. Double Randuins and Death's Defiance on the Kassadin. It's going to be doing a lot of heavy lifting.
That being said, 2 big solo tanks in the Galio for the mages and the Wukong that the Kassadin can get stuck on.
Yeah.
Yeah, this Callista doesn't really have ramp.
You just need the Silver Mirror Dawn Hull Crusher Bar 30 in the back line.
Look at him. He's like in slow motion right now.
It's the new Prowler's Claw.
Oh, the Jinx almost got taken down, but still alive right now. Cass, and exactly you're saying, Panda, stuck on these frontliners. This Wukong
Innervated
is
lock
just
is
not
just
going
too
down.
much. And this is the problem. If you don't break through the big solo tank, you lose by a ton of units, and that means you get eliminated. There's no chance to win any tiebreakers if someone else also goes down. Dish Soap, now also on the chopping block title as well. Both of our previous set champions in the top 4, but not really vying for a win, it looks like.
Okay, the good thing about Dish Soap Spot, had 33 gold, was able to roll, found a very strong charm. The defensive golem is one of the most powerful charms you can find. Gives him a little bit more combat power. Doesn't want to roll anymore, though. I'm actually, this is a little scary. You think he's actually trying to greed to go 10 here?
Like I mentioned, he's not looking to just survive this day 1. He wants to play for a top 8. I think he has to take bigger risks than the usual player who maybe has a little bit lower confidence would.
That Bard has 2 talismans, though. That Bard has 2 golden talismans.
This is the
Not
greatest
1,
timeline.
but 2. Bard 3, definitely a highlight of the day.
It's all about which front line falls first, though. The Rakan, it looks like, is already down. You
Kalista
have the
on the
Morgana. Look at that. Yeah, the front line is going to be bypassed entirely.
Just barely kills the Jinx off, and now can Kalista ramp up in time?
Oh,
the
the
Wukong's
big
coming!
Oh,
Watch out,
no.
it's the monkey!
Is that the monkey? Is the Bard? How big was that Bard?
Yeah, that part
There
is
was
crazy.
another elimination,
Double
though. Title does fall. Dish Soap takes 3rd place, and 3rd place is a really strong placement for dodging that bottom 8. Maybe not the top end like Panda's mentioning if you're trying to make it to the final day, but for now, it helps keep Dish Soap alive.
Especially considering if you're thinking about who Dish Soap is directly competing with to make the day 2, it's not the players who maybe have the best form and the best meta reads, it's players who are currently in a place where they are playing 1st or 8th. A lot of those players will go 8th in the attempt to play risky, making it a little bit easier for Dish Soap to climb out with a 3rd.
Now we see 60second with the Vanguard Hui go up against Milk, who's playing another 3-cost reroll line, right? The 3 costs especially, they help each other hit so much in this game. Bard 3 coming through, not as good items as last round.
When did he get double innervating locket on the Wukong? When did this happen?
Loot subscription, Necra.
Oh,
Don't
okay,
ask
yeah,
us
you're right.
at some point in the game.
Oh,
You're so right.
Okay, I want to say the heads-up play from the Ezreal, having him in the front line, did give him a chance of actually hitting the Jinx early. The Prowler's Claw is actually going to get him targeted, though.
Whoa!
The new Ezreal CN tech. Why does CN have like 7 different Ezreal techs?
That was crazy. The
one's
Prowler's
working.
Claw. Oh, one shot the Jinx.
And
I was gonna hype up the Xerath with double Archangels, but the fight finished before the Xerath even casted.
So Milk here
man.
not rolling down, does find a charm, and you can see actually he's going to roll now to see if he can get any stronger on this board. I actually don't know exactly what he can do to upgrade. Morgana over
Morgana,
Rakan.
yeah.
Maybe Vex actually to get Chrono in. There's an argument for that as well.
I just want to point out that the Bard now has Eternal Winter Mittens.
It's no double talisman.
You're right.
Does he get the
No
swap
Prowler's
though?
Claw.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. This is the Mana Reave. They're actually going to make it a big deal here. The Ezreal's going to take so long to cast.
Look at the angle though of the Ezreal though. Okay,
Oh,
the
where'd he go?
Ziggurat does die. The Jinx stays alive though. Is one more cast going to be enough? There's so many damage threats in the back line though. Everything will fall and no, that's going to be it. Milk will fall 62nd with a frontline Ezreal tech secures the victory.
There we go.